Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com. How are you? I hope you are well. We're going to do another plugin video. I'm going to share with you my top 3 bass plugins. Got some fun ones today. And what I've been doing in this series is just sharing with you, pulling back the curtain on some of my favorite go-tos, the ones that, after 20 years of mixing, looking at what do I keep reaching for consistently, that are just solid performers that help me get the sounds I want. Just to give you some ideas, to inspire you, maybe bring some cool plugins to your mind that you haven't thought of or haven't seen or haven't thought of in a while. Two disclosures before we jump in. One is, again, you can use a bajillion plugins to get a great bass sound. I'm just sharing with you my 3 favorite, the 3 top bass plugins that I continue to use. But there are alternatives that a lot of different brands and manufacturers make, and a lot of these, including one of them, are absolutely free, and a lot of them come stock with your DAW. So don't always assume the best plugins are the ones you have to buy. I use a lot of the free plugins, and you'll see one again today. And second preface is, in the age of sponsored videos, I got to let you know this is not a sponsored video. This is just Graham's opinion. So, there's no one paying me to do these videos. There's no kickback. There's no affiliate links. The way I run this channel is it's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. And so I just want to encourage you to use the tools that you have and and point you to the ones that I can genuinely vouch for. So without further ado, let's dive in. Here's a little snippet of the song. This is cool. This is one of my songs, Bury It, that I wrote years ago, but I got to reproduce with Grammy Award-winning producer Jakir King. He's a good friend of mine, and we got to do this in his studio. So we'll play a snippet of it, and then I'll pull the curtain back on the bass and the 3 plugins I'm using.
I was on the wrong side of a smoking gun. You better believe I regret more than half that I've done.
All right, so let's pull the bass up here, and let's get to the top of the song. And never mind that it looks super fat. We can make it a little smaller here. There we go. All right, so let's take all the plugins off. Here's the bass by itself. Right? This is actually a nice bass, plugs into a nice amp. I mean, it's actually nice, but it's just okay, And so this song needs to be really fat, and there's a lot of layers to make this fat, but on the bass itself, there's a lot we can do. So the first plugin, and I probably have to say my favorite of all 3, I'm just gonna go out with it to start, is R Bass, Renaissance Bass from Wavez. This is an old plugin, but this is your secret weapon for bass, because what it does is it adds harmonics. And bass, a lot of things can benefit from harmonics, but bass guitar especially, it allows you to add harmonics on very specific frequencies, dial in how much or little of the harmonics are there, sort of like a blend knob, and then an overall output so that you can make sure that the bass isn't getting too much louder or louder at all if you don't want, because you are adding signal to the bass. So this isn't an EQ, this is adding harmonics. So I'm gonna turn it on, you can hear what this does to the bass. Hear how it adds some thickness and fatness to it? I kind of like the frequency here at 91 on this bass. I left the intensity at flat at 0, not too much, not too little. And then I just turned the volume down by 3 dB because it was adding some gain. So what it does, and you have to be careful, if you do too much of this, you'll add some sweet, thick some harmonics to it, and then lose some of the clarity, that top end. So sometimes you want to either dial this plugin back, or you want to bring back in some punchy mid-range EQ after this. So it just depends. But this kind of really thickens up the bass, right? So let's get a little bit longer, just this little loop here. Without it. Thinner and kind of wimpier, right? so much beefier. Renaissance bass is your secret weapon, totally worth having in your arsenal. Number two is, and again, this is not the only one, but this is like a harmonics plugin made just for bass. So it really has usable harmonics, usable sounds. It's a well-designed plugin. I think a lot of the Wavez Renaissance plugins in general were well thought out back in the day, and that's why you still see big time producers using them, even though they're very old school. The GUIs are really outdated. I mean, what is this, like 2000, 2001 when this came out, something like that? But dude, it doesn't matter what it looks like, it matters what it sounds like, and this is just a great tool. All right, so I like to thicken up bass with that. Second is some good old compression, and I love uh, any kind of LA3A, but in this case, this is the Chris Lord Alge's compressor pack, bundle. So it's CLA3A, which is, it's like his name. His initials were like made to be a mixer. It's just hilarious. So the LA3A is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, friends in the comments, that it's a tube compressor. But all I know is when I use this guy, it has got a thick, sort of warm sound, and I like it on stuff that I want to compress, but I also want it to be thick and warm, because you don't want everything to be thick and warm. If it all sounds like that, your mix sounds like mud. So I'm just using this for some leveling, and any kind of compression on the bass is going to make the bass sound fatter if done right, because it's going to make the sustain or the tail end of the bass note a little bit fatter to match the pluck of the bass or the transient. So take a listen to what this is doing. So when you do compression right on a bass, it is going to increase the average volume, probably not the peak volume if you do it right, so that the pluck will still be the same volume, but in essence, that tail where it tails off on the bass is actually going to increase in fatness to match the transient at the front of the bass pluck, and that's what gives you the illusion of fatness and just more in your face. And I just love the way the LA3A does it. It sounds so, so good. Very, very usable compressor here from Wavez, again, from the CLA Classic Compressors pack. If you see this on sale somewhere, just grab it. I mean, all of them. I use the LA2A a lot, the 1176 I use a lot, and the LA3 I use very sparingly, but I generally use it on bass because it just sounds so good on bass. So I've added some harmonics to fatten it up, and then now I'm compressing that fattened up sound to be even fatter. And then one more plugin that I love to do is one of my favorites, and this one is free if you're a Pro Tools user, and it is the Air Fuzz Wah. And you've seen this before in other videos. This is one of the strangest yet most useful plugins out there. It is a fuzz pedal that you can turn on or off, and you can dial in as much fuzz as you want, and you can choose the frequency or the tone of the fuzz. So there's a lot of control of the fuzz, but you don't have to even use the fuzz. It's also a wah-wah pedal, which I'm not using it for the wah in this case because I don't want to filter the bass. I want it to be full sound. So these pedal knobs affect the tone and the effect of the wah. I am just using it for the drive. I'm using it for the fuzz. I'm using it as a fuzz plugin, and I'm using it in parallel. So I'm just basically mixing in 11% of the fuzz so that you're hearing virtually 90% of the clean bass and then 10 to 11% of the fuzz bass to give us a little bit of fuzzy grit. Take a listen. So in the upper frequencies, we're adding a little bit of those upper harmonics. So we've used our bass, right, to add low harmonics to thicken up the bass. We've used the compressor to even all that out and make it nice and fat. And then we're using the fuzz wah to add some drive, some sizzle at the top, which is going to help the bass just sound really cool. This is a very gritty song. There are super fuzzy, distorted guitars. It's very Muse-esque. And so that's kind of the style of this production, but also it's a practical thing. On small speakers, iPhone speakers, laptop speakers, crappy small speakers, it's hard to hear low end because small speakers can't produce low end correctly. They just don't have the surface area. So you need to hear other frequencies on the bass to notice the bass. And so that's where upper harmonics or mid-range harmonics can help you perceive the bass on small speakers. So any kind of fuzz or distortion when mixed in, you can do this in parallel. Like you could put a distortion plugin on a copy of the bass and literally mix it in with a fader. I'm doing it in one plugin here. It makes a big difference. It's a subtle thing, but it makes a big difference on the bass translating. So let's press play and I'll take away all three plugins in one fell swoop. You can hear where we took the bass from. Huge, fatter, more aggressive, more usable. And I haven't even used an EQ. I mean, an EQ is probably you're going to be your go-to plugin on bass. But the beauty of these is if the bass was recorded well and fits well with the mix, then these three plugins, some harmonics on the low end, some compression, and some fuzz or distortion at the top end blended in, can really just give you a perfect bass sound. If you wanted to finalize or tweak the sound even more, I would just grab an EQ and do some specific fine tuning to make sure it's not getting covered up or covering something else up. But there you have it. Those are my top three. So we've got the Fuzz Wah here, which comes stock with Pro Tools. We've got the CLA 3A from Wavez, which is a good LA3A clone. And then we've got our bass from Wavez, which there's not a ton like it. It's just a great usable magic trick. I mean, it's made for this kind of thing, and it works beautifully. So two things. One, what is your favorite bass plugin? Like, and by favorite, what do you find yourself reaching for on almost every mix when you've got a bass, whether it's an actual bass that someone's playing or a synth bass or any kind of bass? What's one, just your number one bass plugin? Leave me a comment below. Let me know. I want to see what you're using and what you're mixing through. And then number two, if you want more mixing tricks, and not only tricks, but a mixing system, right? So you know what to do first, second, third, or fourth in your mix. I want to give you my 8-step mixing checklist. It's real simple. I have systematized mixing for myself to be an 8-step process that I never skip a single step to make it faster and easier and give me more consistent mixes. So I want to give you this PDF, which is the checklist of what I do first, second, third, fourth, all the way through eighth, give you some tips and tricks around each step. I also want to throw in a few extra bonus video goodies. I also want to give you a collection of stems, multi-track stems from a song that you can download and practice these 8 steps on, so you have a whole new song to practice mixing on. I want to give it to you absolutely free, just as a gift for watching these videos and hanging with me to the end. Just click the link below in the description, or just go to mixingchecklist.com, grab your download there if you haven't already. Enjoy the guide, enjoy the free videos and the multi-track stems, and get good at mixing by practicing a system. Don't just grab plugins and randomly turn knobs. Have and follow a system, and I promise you, you will start to see results as you get better at mixing. Hope you're staying healthy and safe. Hope you're well. Have fun mixing this week, and I'll see you in another video real soon.